Good afternoon. My name is Brian Della Sola. I am a student at Liberty University, and today I'll be doing my interpersonal communication project for the class HSCO 508, Studies in Interpersonal Communication. The main points of this presentation will include my behavioral blend and background, communication barriers, resources and strategies, and my action plan. The purpose for this project is twofold. The first being to develop an interpersonal communication plan that serves to create and maintain healthy, healing, helping, and holy relationships through effective communication. Second is to demonstrate my ability in composing and effectively delivering a message with clear, purposeful, and well-organized content with attention both to verbal and nonverbal aspects. On this, I need to disclose I have a bit of a speech impediment, a lisp to be specific, but I'm going to do the best that I can do to articulate well throughout this presentation. My overreaching goal as a future behavioral counselor is to employ my education, experience, and God-given abilities in an effort to improve the mental, emotional, and spiritual fitness of those who I serve. As a strong therapeutic alliance is closely associated with positive therapeutic outcomes, and as the strength of the therapeutic alliance is strongly influenced by the interpersonal communication shared between client and counselor, the accomplishment of my overreaching goal is directly influenced by my communication skills. Firstly, my behavioral blend and background. Through Uniquely You 2020, we were tasked by this class to complete a professional leadership online profile. In my profile, identified me as a high C personality type. Some of the things consistent with that is being active and passive, outgoing, task-orientated, intellectually deep, people and task-orientated, inspirational, cautious, calculating, and careful, and enlightening. I believe that my communication patterns were also influenced by my service as a United States Marine, as well as my 18 years of experience within law enforcement. I perceive that the most significant communication benefit from these experiences would include my ability to communicate openly and succinctly, where the most significant communication shortfalls would likely involve a deficit in empathetic listening. As a summary of my high C profile, these are the things that were identified. That I am perhaps the best types when it comes to communication. I know subject matter and know how to make it interesting. I'm both active and passive. Task and people skills make me sometimes a popular presenter or teacher. My shortcomings are evident in the lack of drive and determination to work independently. I prefer being in a group. I'm especially capable of convincing others with informative presentations. I tend to lack determination as well as softness and sweetness. I'm not dominating or demanding. I'm also not submissive or satisfied with the status quo. And it summarizes everything by saying I'm a tremendous blend of a couple different types, which makes me popular and convincing. Now, some of the things that I as a high C, I am warned to guard against are keeping my influencing and impressing abilities in control and not talking too much. To be careful not to be the center of attention, to guard against speaking over people's heads, to keep my words simple and easy to understand, not to let public opinion influence me, to be slow to speak and quick to hear, to be more tender, loving, and kind on an individual basis, and to cultivate close relationships and be more conscientious of people's feelings. Now, some of the communication barriers I identified throughout the course of this study is my tendency to manipulate or control conversation, that most of my conversations are geared towards debate rather than dialogue, my tendency to focus on talking rather than listening, my tendency to read into things or people rather than engage in active listening. These interpersonal communication barriers negatively impact my relationships, both personally and professionally, by hindering my ability to engage in what Stewart refers to as genuine dialogue. which he believes is the highest form of communication. Some of the resources utilized within this presentation are the 3 books, How to Solve the People Puzzle, Bridges Not Walls, and Why Don't We Listen Better. What I found particularly useful with How to Solve the People Puzzle was the detailed description of my particular personality characteristics, but also I found to be equally interesting is techniques that I can use to be effective while interacting with people of other personality types, getting along with them, what works for them, what doesn't work for me. Within Bridges Not Walls, what I found specifically very salient was the concept revolving around the quality of relationships being directly related to the quality of communication. And within Why Don't We Listen Better, what I found to be particularly salient was the concept involving the dual role of the counselor as an active listener and a conscientious talker, the difference between those two and the importance of those two. As far as strategies recommended by my high CI, 2 people with my high CI profile, I was warned against, being stubborn when presenting my side, remembering that my inspirational communication can be more powerful than my know-it-all attitude. Warned against overusing my charisma to manipulate, taking advantage of popularity and knowledge in order to talk people into things, becoming caustic and saying hurtful things in the heat of the moment. I was warned to guard against using charisma for selfish gain and to have more willpower and not let my pride destroy my character. Lastly, I was warned, or it was suggested, that I be more sensitive to the needs of individuals as opposed to selfish gain. As far as a specific action plan as discussed within our studies, there are 2 specific suggestions that I will incorporate into my life. The first is what Dr. Peterson referred to as the talker-listener method, and which there is a physical card that tells you when to speak and when not to speak. Rather than utilizing an actual card, however, I will visualize that talker-listener card in my head, focusing on my role within the moment as either an active and empathetic listener or a conscientious and thoughtful speaker, not both. The other suggestion was Peterson's hem and haw technique, and this is to directly help you to not speak, to be an active listener and to fight the urge to speak. And in order to do that, immediately upon feeling the urge to interrupt, to solve, to give advice, or become defensive, I will display some form of physical manifestation, to remind me of my need to not speak and to revert back into my role as an active listener. Lastly, I would like to conclude with a quote, and it is as follows. It's concerning conversation as prayer. In conversation, I open myself up to another. Speaking, I give voice to my hopes and fears. Listening, I hear another self and momentarily experience the world from a different perspective. Through encountering the human other, I learn what it is to encounter the divine other, an ultimate reality beyond itself. I believe this quote to be particularly relevant and profound, as it highlights the honesty and humility and vulnerability requisite in the establishment of genuine dialogue and a trusting relationship. 2 things that we should all be striving for. That concludes my presentation. I thank you for your attention.